Hey everyone, welcome to week number 9. We are almost here. This week you have your project 3 due. I'll just quickly go over some quick advice for that here in just a second. But again, the module overview, again, we're still talking about business decision making and ethical and legal responsibilities. The authors of the course here, say there's always a catch in some of the fine print and some of these advertisements you see. And I remember growing up as a kid, the town I grew up in, there was always this furniture store that was always going out of business. And then when you would read the fine print on the commercial, it would say going out for business instead of going out of business. So some of these things, it's not always black and white. It's not always crystal clear. And one of your classmates also brought up a good example in one of their posts, and I got to thinking about it, and it's a perfect example of legal and ethical kind of a dilemma inside of a large company, and it can also show you how big and how expensive this can be if some of these things play out. So one of your classmates in one of their posts shared the VW Dieselgate scandal. And then once I was thinking about it, I'm like, this is perfect kind of fodder for this section of the course. And you think about what happened here, and it's pretty basic. So um, as we try to become less dependent on fossil fuels, governments have started making things more stringent, right? They've started saying you have to get so many miles per gallon, the emissions cannot exceed X. And unfortunately, diesel engines create a lot of, I don't know if it's smog, but a lot of distillates that go into the atmosphere when they burn. And they had not been banned in the US, but they had been highly regulated until Volkswagen, Porsche, and Audi come out, which is basically the same company. Uh, um, they're kind of a conglomerate together. They're run separately, but they're also brother and sister type companies. Volkswagen came out with a clean diesel that would meet all of the US requirements plus all the global requirements. Now, one thing to remember with a diesel engine is these things they'll run forever. I had an old Mercedes when I was in college and when I was young. It was a 1977 240D Mercedes sedan. And when I sold that car, I think it had like 300,000 miles on it. And you couldn't kill the engine in the thing. I mean, it would run consistently, and that's kind of the one of the features of a diesel engine is it gets consistently high gas mileage, and they last forever if you take care of them. So, however, they could not get these diesel engines to pass the stringent emissions requirements, specifically in the U.S., but then also in Western Europe and some other parts of the world. So they did a lot of research and supposedly developed a clean diesel, which basically used you see it a lot. It's called DEF fluid, diesel emissions fluid, and what that fluid does is it's actually injected once the diesel is burned and it's in the exhaust, then it injects this DEF fluid and it somehow changes the particulates in the exhaust system, and then it's put outside the car basically. And that was the way they did it, or supposedly the way they did it. But what in reality happened was is they created some software within the computer module that basically would say when a monitoring system was hooked up to these cars that it basically gave off inaccurate readings. So it would tell, regulators. It would also tell any state that, required smog emissions standards that, you know, everything's fine. This engine's within compliance. So it was basically lying. And what happened was they got caught. It got leaked. And what's interesting is they paid more than 30 billion in fines, penalties, restitution because they had to give the owners of these cars their money back, or they had to give them some sort of settlement if they decided to keep the car. Then they had to retrofit the cars. I think they got them very close to compliance once they were retrofitted. There were some things that they had to change about them. But of course, not only was VW involved in all this because they're the seller of this car, but there's also some underlying companies that was involved in this, like Bosch Automotive, and I think there was another one, if I'm not mistaken, that was involved in this kind of scheme to defraud, create this defeat device or the software that helped it pass these tests. So it's quite interesting how deep this scandal kind of went. And as you can see, there was right around 580, 600,000 vehicles that was sold. So this is a big thing. And of course, the CEO, his name was Martin Winterkorn. He's a German guy. Basically said, okay, this happened without my knowledge and it happened underneath me. And again, when I say tone at the top, if he would have said a very crisp tone at the top that we don't break the rules, we take the rules and we try to bring them to the next level and we try to adhere to the rules, then maybe some of this wouldn't happen. And at the end of the day, whether he knew or he didn't know, he's also the CEO. He is the leader of the Volkswagen Group, and he's responsible whether it happens, whether he has knowledge of it or not. So I think this is a really good story, and thanks for bringing it up. Thanks for calling it out. But this is a really good example of a large instance where you come up with the legal and ethical situation, but it also has a huge environmental impact, or it could have had a huge environmental impact if this would have went on consistently over time. So this is really good fodder for these last couple of sections plus this section. Again, this week, let's just quickly focus. So here you're just expanding on project 2. Make sure you follow the directions. You get the memo from the legal department. It's available down here in the supporting materials section. For each legal issue, include the requirements below, and you just go through and you tick off each of these. So this is, again, a written project specifically focused on your health and beauty company, right? So don't forget your supporting materials. Please use the response template. That kind of helps you. Don't forget to stick a cover page, and also don't forget to reference anything that you use. If it's the text, if it's a web page, that sort of thing. Don't forget the rubric as well. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I hope everyone has enjoyed a great 4th of July holiday. If you need anything in this last week, please reach out to me. I think I've gotten everything graded through week 7. I'll start later today and start grading the stuff you turned in yesterday. So if you have any issues, please reach out. Otherwise, have a great week, and I look forward to reading your responses.